Skyjon the Icon here, and I have a question for you. Where do you end and the legend begins? That's the point of this video, is outlining where a person's legacy ends and where they begin and vice versa. So currently what we're watching in terms of media, while they're distracting us with such a hot story, is we're watching Drake in some ways fall apart. Of the facade of who he was and what he represents falling apart right before our eyes, and the artistry of Kendrick Lamar reaching unprecedented heights through his authenticity. So there's several things that I want to bring up about this from a philosophical standpoint. First and foremost, I wrote about this in my book, which you can find, A Stone Cold Philosophy, The Obligation of Self-Actualization. The one of the last chapters I write about the artist versus the industry. Probably the best part of the book is my observation about the artist versus the industry. It needs to be understood by all creatives. The artist never wins. You cannot win, right? So Drake currently is suing UMG. Drake is never going to win that lawsuit. It will be impossible for Drake to win that lawsuit. And even if he did somehow, some way win the lawsuit, he would lose the war in the long run because he would never get radio play again or Spotify placement again or anything of that nature. He is fighting a losing battle because he is an artist. The artist versus the industry is such a complex narrative that many creatives don't understand and the average person has never really thought about. But the purpose of being an artist is not to just create things. If you want to create things, you could be a carpenter, right? You could be a crafter, right? You don't have to be an artist to create. But to create from the soul, you must be an artist, top to bottom, through and through. Now, if you're a real artist, you're always trying to push for something new, push for something different. The industry does not care about different. The industry does not care about new. What the industry cares about is money. So as long as they can replicate what you're doing and make money off of it, you'll be in their favor. The moment they can't replicate it, you're gone. And the moment you, as an artist, want to use the power that you've created to do something different, you will be gone. I say this because it happens to every single artist that reaches a certain level. They break through their own glass ceiling and they think that they can dictate what happens, but you never can. It's not the way that it's built. Now, here's the beauty of it, right? The beauty of this fight is that it's forever going on. It's cyclical. There'll always be another artist fighting and fighting and fighting. And things do get better for everybody else through the fight of the real artist, right? So the fight of the artist is not for progression of self, but for progression itself. And Drake is not thinking about progression itself. He's thinking about progression of self. And that is where he will fail and why he's not being viewed as a martyr or somebody who's pointing this out for good reasons. He's pointing out the unfair practices of music and streaming services because he got caught at the negative aspect of it. He didn't point this out when he was benefiting from it because he's not a real artist. Drake is the greatest crafter of all time in terms of hip hop music. He can emulate any style. He can turn himself into any one that he needs to turn into at the time to make a hit song, which is a talent. Drake is extremely talented, but he's not an artist. He's a crafter, completely different than a Kendrick Lamar, who will make an album, which his latest album has shown you, so off the cuff, so different than what you've heard, yet still palatable. Like you can still taste it. Palatable. You can still taste the album. You can still kind of get it, but it's not something you've heard before, but you like it, but you don't really like it. This song is good, but that song is bad. That's what Kendrick Lamar is giving you, an actual artistic experience through your eardrums. Drake is never taking risks like that. The most risky thing Drake has done was his techno album, or that album with all the dance music, and that was a flop. He did not remain dedicated to that. He abandoned that immediately. Not going to get off topic here, because the purpose of this video is to showcase how a lot of people who reach the status of a Drake get extremely confused. because they don't understand where where they end and the legend begins. So to refocus the conversation, artist versus the industry, Drake is going to lose this. 100% going to lose this battle. He's killing his own legacy, which in a way is poetic. Which in a way, if you watch his career, where he went from begging for attention and proving that he deserved to be the top spot and proving that he wasn't just somebody that Lil Wayne found for no reason, he proved himself time and time and time and time again to then become so big that you're now the industry standard for like the last 8 years, 10 years, and to now be villainized for reaching such success. It's poetic, to be honest. But Drake needs to take a step back and realize that his legacy is already set. And Drake, if you're listening, you must give yourself permission to transition. Transition and ride off into the sunset on your own accord. It's okay if it's over, because the history books will read the same. The more you speak and the more you reach and try to hold on to your position, the quicker the position will be taken from you, right? The way that you got into position through hard work, dedication, luck, the world being in your favor, you enjoy it while it lasts, and then you move on, because you end and then your legacy begins. You don't get to just hold on to it forever. Another example of this, artist versus industry, not understanding where you end and your legacy begins, is Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson is going through the exact same thing as Drake. Their careers to me almost mirror each other. The Rock, no need to go through his history. You know where he started wrestling, blah 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 blah. But right now, he is the biggest movie star on the planet, and it's dwindling. But there's no doubt that the history books will reflect 100% that top 5 best people to have in your movie of all time, number 5 or 4 on that list is The Rock. And movies he's directed have not done as well. And people are starting to look at his personality and things that he's doing and scrutinizing it, and he's not getting the same love and adulation that he used to get. And he's holding on. He's fighting for it. And at some point you got to realize that Dwayne Johnson and The Rock are different people. Just like Drake and Aubrey Graham are different people. Aubrey Graham is not Drake and Dwayne Johnson is not The Rock. These are fake facades that will end. Everything has to end. Right? Now, when you are creating at a high level and allowed to do so and loved by the world, it is very hard to give that up. It is extremely difficult to process that I am not my persona. The difficulty, this is why rock stars, an example of how difficult this is why a lot of rock stars die at the highlight of their career. They burn out rather than fade away. The famous quote. It's because to comprehend that you've made it to the top of where you wanted to be in your industry, and the industry can just get rid of you, is more terrifying than never making it. See, if you never make it, you can tell yourself, "Oh, I never made it. Man, I was ahead of my time." You can lie, but to not be ahead of your time, to be the greatest of your time, to be unprecedentedly talented, and have the industry still tell you, "Yeah, well, we don't need you anymore," right? Like that's a level of self acceptance that many people they don't have. So this is why one of the other reasons I'm making this video is because there's a understanding that I want the average person to get when it comes to their own lives, by looking at what Drake is doing, because he looks ridiculous. You look ridiculous suing in anything remotely close to you suing during this rap beef. You look ridiculous, right? He's suing for his own reasons, artist versus industry. He's got some other idea of why he's suing, but the optics of this look terrible. It's because he won't let it go. Kendrick Lamar has not stopped Drake from getting a check. Not Like Us has not stopped Drake from getting a check. We know this. Drake is going to be rich until he dies. We know this. He's never going to be homeless. Aubrey Graham is never going to be homeless. So why are you worried about it? What are you really trying to gain from this? You see? And many of us, as we become 25, we still are trying to hold on to how youthful we looked at 20. You become 30. You want to do the things you did in your 20s, right? Because you don't understand where you end and your persona begins. Everything that you tell yourself about yourself, or not everything, most things you tell yourself about who you are not real. Let's get to the core. Most of what you tell yourself about yourself is not real. And this is why I'm using the examples that I'm using. Was Drake ever that great, or did Spotify just put him to the top? Was Drake ever that great, or did the record company UMG and Cash Money Records just put him to the top and force him down your throat? Right? Were the Rock's movies ever that good, or did we just not have anything else that summer to watch? You see? Right? Who is The Rock without a cameraman? Who is Drake without 40 making the beats? Who are you without everybody else? Right? So everything that we tell ourselves about ourselves, right, or most things we tell ourselves, it's a facade. It's fake. It's not real. It's happening, but the longevity and the nuts and bolts of it, you're nobody without everybody else. So this is why you must accept and clearly recognize where you end and the persona begins, so that you can always remain in everyone's good graces. Now, this is extremely difficult to do, and very few people in the public eye have ever pulled this off. Last example of this happening too, by the way. In the last election, Barack Obama, he saw where his persona ended and he began when he was rallying black males to vote for Kamala Harris. He quickly saw that the love for Obama is not what it was in 2008. He clearly saw that his influence over the people, while still great, it was not what he thought it was, right? Now, hopefully he takes this moment, does a pivot, and responds properly to it, or just rides off into the sunset. But I would like to clarify before I end this video why you must recognize where you end and the persona and the legacy begins. And I'll give an example of someone who's done it well. The greatest example I could think of in the media, I was just talking about it today, was Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen are worth and were worth a lot of money. And in 1994, they started their own media company. Blue Star or Delta Stars, I don't know the name of the media company, but they started their own media company. They made a bunch of those movies with their own media company, right? They were child stars, right? Once they became adults, they were sick of acting or saw the industry for what it was, whatever it is. They knew that they could not change the industry, artist versus industry. They recognized we've made an impact, we've made our money, we've been loved by the people, we're in their good graces. It's time to stop. Mary-Kate and Ashley realized that no matter what, they would forever be somewhere within the lexicon of pop culture. You can't talk about the 90s in depth and talk about child stars without at some point bringing up the Olsen twins. But they left the industry, and they left with ownership of all of what they've done. They own everything that they've done, or most movies that they make, 90% of them they own. Why do you think you never see the Olsen twins on Netflix or Hulu? Right? You never see them anywhere. They have 50, 60 movies. You don't see these movies because they own them. Right? Because an artist, not truly, but as an artist, it's very important to have ownership. Most artists don't even have ownership. That's a different video. But they understood where their legacy ended and their personas began, and the real them began. The real them in their early 20s was coming out. Rather than hold on to fame in its clutches and try to be the Olsen twins for the next 50 years together, tied at the hip, they gave it up. Non-attachment. And that's how you do it, right? You enjoy the fruits of your labor while it's happening. You fully embrace being Drake. You fully embrace being The Rock. You fully embrace, right, the persona given to you by Hollywood, by the music industry. You live it up to the heights that you can. And then when it's over or when it starts to wane, you give it up. You fade to black. Go to the background. Transition. The Olsen twins are out of the media eye. They've transitioned into fashion 20 years ago at this point. Don't care if you like it. Don't care if you watch them. Don't care if you know who they are anymore. And that's how you recognize where your legacy ends and where you begin. Because ultimately, philosophically, you have to understand that you are not your legacy. And you do not choose your legacy. We choose your legacy. And objectively speaking, if your contribution was that great, it will forever hold weight. So you don't need to do anything else. Let it go. Let it go. Anyone who looks at sports knows that the statistics and the numbers outweigh anything. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, his record just got broken. Right? He really was the all-time scorer. No need to add to that. So I will conclude this video about Kendrick Lamar and Drake with my main points if you made it this far. First and foremost, Drake is not an artist. Drake is a crafter. Crafters are extremely talented, and to be honest, we need more crafters than we need artists. Artists are aloof. Artists are not consistent enough. A real artist going through the depths of his soul or her soul to create is going to take too much time. So we need artists for ideas, but we need crafters for execution. Continuous execution is what crafters provide. Drake is a crafter. That's how he's been on top for 15 years. Any style that comes up, Drake can emulate. Now, as a great crafter, he may be confused and view himself as an artist, which he is not. He's not giving us a Thriller. He's not giving us a Can't Tell Me Nothing. He's not giving us a Hard Knock Life. He's not giving us We Gonna Be Alright. He's not giving us a To Pimp a Butterfly album. He has not given us anything in that realm. So the confusion of Drake, who is the greatest crafter of all time, is that he believes as an artist he can take down, or he's on equal footing with the industry. Cardinal mistake of all people who get too big in this thing that we call fame. You will always be replaceable because you were nothing without the cameraman. And the cameraman does not answer to you. The cameraman answers to the industry. The industry will always need a Drake, but there'll always be another Drake. There's only one industry. The industry always wins. The second thing, or the third or second bullet point that I want to finish this video on, is the necessity of recognizing when you end and your legacy begins. We are always getting older. We are always getting slower. We are always getting or being put into different positions because life is so difficult. Things are always changing. As these things change, you must change. As these things change, you must change. And you must recognize when your position is shifting and let it go. Practice non-attachment or you will look like a fool, because Father Time always wins, trends always win, and you are not who you think you are. Like I just said, who's Drake without the cameraman? Who's Drake without the engineer? Who's Drake without the fans? Who are you without the likes and the adulation, right? You're not really this. That's fake. So just want to end the video on that note, and I hope that this helps somebody. I really love seeing things like this play out because I love the philosophical moments that happen in pop culture that really make everybody sit back and take a pause and just think about things differently, because money can't buy legacy. It can influence for a while, right? And when you do get put in position, how you are viewed in the long run is up to you. So, other on that note, thank you guys.